In their formative research into new media, the theorists J. David Bolter and Richard Grusin identify the ultimate intention of all media as to have an effect on society and to contribute to a cultural redefinition of the self. However, in order to redefine the self, media must redefine itself. This is achieved by way of remediation. What Bolter and Grusin define as the logic of remediation dictates that all media is connected, engaged in constant conversation, allowing for the aspects of one medium to be reimagined within the confines of another. The end goal of this transference is to enable a medium to achieve immediacy, the state in which the dissonance between user and interface is eliminated, causing the presence of the medium itself to be forgotten. This practice is tied intrinsically to the new medium of video games, which constantly strives to new heights of realism and immersion, something emphasized by the focus on increased graphical fidelity between console generations. The visual style inherent to modern AAA video games is one that has evolved from the remediation of cinematic techniques, such as cinematography, editing, and camera effects. While not necessarily derived from the realism of the non-digital world, this remediation occurs because film has already established a benchmark of what a visual experience should look like, providing a shorthand for realism in games. Despite this, there's a certain tension in the repurposing between old and new media, one that Bolter acknowledges, describing remediation as homage and rivalry combined. New media wants the viewer to understand that it is a digital and therefore improved version of old media. Games may borrow the representational practices of film, but simultaneously promote an idea that the interactivity of the medium is able to provide a more immediate and therefore more compelling experience. New media seeks to provide new ways to access older media while maintaining transparency, providing the same experience between viewer and media that would exist had the viewer experienced the media in a traditional way. Even so, the remediated experience is by nature incapable of being exactly the same. Simply viewing images of Michelangelo's David on a screen fails to present the viewer with the sense of scale that would be apparent had they viewed it in person. As new media, video games remediate many mediums. Within video games, the existence of role-playing games offers an alternative to cinematic remediation. RPGs are rooted in pre-computer play, deriving their tropes and conventions from literary fantasy and world folklore. Bolter and Grusin dismiss the genre as remediated Tolkien, but this fails to address the role that the old media played in mediating the genre. While historically leaning towards fantasy, tabletop RPGs are now as varied as digital games themselves. However, the most widely known of these remains Dungeons & Dragons, a system which itself has been remediated countless times through multiple editions. In tabletop RPGs, the interactions between players and the DM are the driving force behind gameplay, with the DM responsible for facilitating player action and creating the world where those actions occur. When remediated as a single-player video game, this social aspect is eliminated entirely and is instead fulfilled by the computer. The co-creator of Dungeons & Dragons remarked on this, stating, "The player assumes a character model and takes action in that environment without any real role-playing at all. Try suggesting something to a computer that isn't in the program, of course." The RPG video game is no longer a collectively produced fantasy, but one that occurs within a specific world, defined by strict parameters, diverting the primary focus of the game from character role-playing and progression towards more functional encounters, in which success is measured by the player's accumulation of rewards. However, as modern video games increasingly remediate cinematic codes and storytelling techniques, a greater focus on character has been observed. This notion is particularly relevant to the RPG genre due to its tendency towards storytelling and narrative, something exemplified by character creation, a definite hallmark of many RPGs. Players customize their own in-game character to act as an avatar, a form of interactivity that provides heightened immediacy, allowing for the player's remediation of themselves and offering countless chances for the re-establishment of identity through play. The intermittent ability to assign countless new perks, feats, and skills to a character means that the role of the character within a game is constantly transformed and reinvented. The massively multiplayer online RPGs of the late 1990s and early 2000s heralded the return of the social elements of the genre, blurring the line between community and game entirely. In these games, the social arena becomes a part of the framework of the game itself, suggesting that remediation is not only that of content, but also of social practice. It is undeniable that video games are not produced in a vacuum. They are propagated and developed through intertextuality with other media formats, and in turn referred to by other media. Despite this, the future of new media remains uncertain. There can only be speculation as to what its evolution will look like. Some arguments hold that remediation played a role in the development of new media, but will be left behind when its own authentic forms and aesthetics are uncovered. That cannot be significant in its own right until it makes a radical break from the past. Grusin refutes this idea, believing that like their precursors, digital media will never achieve this state of transcendence, and will continue to function in conversation with earlier media. While the fate of digital media may be uncertain, one thing is clear. The logic of remediation is enduring. As director Stanley Kubrick once said, "Everything has already been done. Every story has been told. Every scene has been shot. It's our job to do it one better."